So, in my last video, I made these spherical-shaped tanks and robots for the invented faction of the Soviet Union that only exists in my mind for a fallout that happens in Europe. Yes, I am that weird. I also have made videos about tachikomas, which are for the faction of China. And what else I could do right now? Well, I had a lot of ideas, but nevertheless, I want to do something that you could probably find useful, and I read these comments. So, by judging all of these comments, including this particular one, which says that to him reminds my soldiers to the ones on the left, which actually my reference were the guys on the right, I choose that I owe you a video of how I kitbash figures for a post-apocalyptic European faction for Fallout that only exists in my mind. That's the reason it takes so much time, and also creating a real laser anti-tank gun which shoots real laser beams, because I am weird. Before we begin on this video, I have to say that there are at least two types of men with black leather and gas masks. Type 2. Now that you know that, it's time to know where you can buy these models. Actually, you can't, because this video is about kitbashing. Nevertheless, you can buy figures and then modify them, kitbash them. There's a variety of figures. You have resin ones, plastic ones, resin printed ones like these ones right now, and some have more quality and others less. For example, this American guy with a bazooka has an incredible quality as model, which you cannot see in the image. The same happens with this Soviet. And actually, interestingly enough, the 3D printed ones actually didn't have any kind of interesting detail. And this was the lightsabers I wanted to use as laser beam for my cannon. Nevertheless, I could not use them, at least the LED and the battery, because it's that small thing. You cannot buy more batteries of those. The LED has no power. That's the reason I have used a laser pointer. And for the gas masks, I will show you how you can create your own using green stuff, and you can buy resin models for gas masks like that M17. So let's go to building stuff. Well, actually not, because I should mention that I have these amount of subscribers, and now I have these. All of this thanks to the Big Ball tanks. So I really appreciate that, and your subscriptions and your likes, because for me it's quite weird that you like the things that I like, and I really like that. Now let's speak about references. Let's speak about this. First of all, I take as reference the idea of the fire breathers of Fallout 76, that red accented pads. I love them. The liquidators, both on the uniform and the lore, the uniforms of East Germany and France in the 20th century for firefighters, the M17 gas mask for the American, that red Stahlhelm from Germany, the Outcasts from Fallout 3 as fictional stuff, again, and Duty as faction for Stalker, and also the cover of the book of Stalker that I have. And something important, my immense amount of love to trench coats, because they make you look extremely masculine. Take a little walk to the edge of town and go across the track. So now, yes, it's time to build stuff. First of all, you should know that you have to apply a different technique to each different model or figure. Resin printed models, resin cast models probably will need cleaning. You can use a cutter or an X-Acto knife in this way. Do not overextend the blade, because it will probably slip and cut your finger, and you do not want that unless you are in the Japanese Yakuza. After this, because in the original model the Stringer 44 rifle broke, at least the tip, I will glue a half part of an assault rifle G3, which is the son of the Spanish Fetme assault rifle, which should be there, and I will fix the problems later. For example, those enormous crevices will be filled with super glue, and later the other crevices, like the one of the assault rifle with the stock, will be filled with green stuff, but not right now. Right now I will use this sandpaper, roll it to have this softness, in order to remove the marks of layering of the 3D printed model and the casted ones, because the casted ones had that ugly kind of thing which appears after the casts. Now it's time to glue the arms on the guy, and that shovel didn't came with this kit, obviously, as you can see in the color of this resin. This resin came from these 28mm figures, which are like a proxy for Krieg, as well as this bazooka, which looks like the child of a Panzerschreck with an M1 bazooka. And that will be on the American, because it has for me a better proportion for this guy than for the 20mm guy. The same happens with this kind of rifle, which came from this conversion kit from Wargames Atlantic. But right now I will glue in the French original parts of the French guy, like that bag, and for the rest of the things I will fill the holes. For the American I will use these M17 gas masks. These ones are made out of resin, and I will use the magic of blue tack to see if it convinces me or not, and it looks cool. It convinces me, so it will be there. I also have glued the hands, original hands, of the bazooka, the one of the not Krieg thing, there. And because I like how the helmet and head looks, I will apply an immense amount of super glue and put the head there. For now I will not glue the bazooka, because I will need copious amount of paint to paint that properly, so I prefer to do that separately. I will glue some parts which came from this model, like the water canteen and the trench shovel. For the Russian or the Soviet, I will glue these other resin gas masks and these parts from Krieg, plastic Krieg, if I'm not wrong, also, like the last gun or like the backpack. For the French I will glue that pistol, which came from a World War I kit of Wargames Atlantic, and for the Spanish guy I will glue that grenade. And now it's time to add a stock for the laser SMG, which will give more realism, like you can see right now in this foldable stock of the Scorpion submachine gun or the MP40 or MP38 German submachine guns. And now it's time to do something with green stuff. In this case, it's time to create gas masks and another variety of stuff. First of all, you need to mix the yellow thing with the blue thing. That's the reason it's called green stuff, because it's a, well, green stuff. Yes, sometimes we get really creative putting names to things. Then I'm using a tool known as my finger with a bit of water. And now, yes, I'm using a tool which was in origin a needle for an airbrush, which is completely ruined, as you can see there. And I will use the bottom of this needle to create the ocular parts of the gas mask. And then I will stick a small ball of green stuff there, because it will be the part that will connect in the future with a hose, which will be connected to an oxygen backpack reserve, because this will be a closed respiration system. I mean, these are hazmat suits more than radiation gas masks. And cover everything well, use a tool, in this case a really small screwdriver, in order to have the detail for later. Once you have made that, it's time to make more gas masks for more guys. For example, this French guy, which looks to me like
Jeremy Clarkson.
I don't want to set the world.
And obviously, it will end looking like this. And what we can do right now, while the putty is a bit wet, it's to mark, to make some indentations on the rubber, because I consider this could be some kind of post-apocalyptic rubber produced in some factory, refinery, or whatever. You in Mad Max have gas town, so you have ability to produce stuff such as rubber for wheels. I probably think that for gas mask should work. Now let's do more things with the excedent of green stuff that I have created. Right now I'm pressing and making all of this, which looks horrible, and I will use my trusty Bismarck, which is a ruler, because Bismarck is the ruler of the 7 seas. And then cut these to create what could be straps, belts, or ribbons, depending on your purpose. They can work for one thing or for another. For example, for the American, I will use it here and there in order to indicate that the backpack that he will carry in the future is connected to something logical, and it should look like this. My reference was the Fallout New Vegas, as you can see here, Ranger, but he wears a duster. A duster has logic in North America, in the Midwest, in the West, and whatnot, in the desert. But for Europe, we tend to use trench coats or grey coats, and my reference was that American with trench coat in the Bulge campaign and the M17 gas mask. And I guess that's all. Well, no, that's not all. I'm getting a bit bored, so let's ramble about something. Fallout has a kind of special niche. It has his own charm, and this is the charm of Fallout 76, the newest one right now.
War never changes. In 1776, this great nation accepted that armed conflict was the only way to preserve our rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. If our founding fathers could only see us now.
And well, that was Fallout 76. Take special attention to the music, to the tone, to the message, to the phrase war. War never changes. And now listen to Fallout 1.
War never changes. In the 21st century, war was still waged over the resources that could be acquired. Only this time, the spoils of war were also its weapons. Petroleum and uranium. For these resources, China would invade Alaska, the US would annex Canada, and the European Commonwealth would dissolve into quarreling, bickering nation-states bent on controlling the last remaining resources on Earth. In 2077, the storm of World War had come again. In 2 brief hours, most of the planet was reduced to cinders. And from the ashes of nuclear devastation, a new civilization would struggle to arise.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, was the tone of Fallout 1 versus Fallout 76. My question is, can we express something similar? The story of these post-war outcast soldiers from different factions now united in just one. Obviously they have their own quirks, their own flags. Right now you will see only one of these soldiers. The question is, can we tell with the tone, with the message, with sounds of old radios, messages, music, real photos, real imagery like in the original Fallout, all the story of War Never Changes, without actually sounding over redundant? And I have made this.
810 5.
So yep, that's my take on Fallout, or at least Fallout Europe, or whatever I am inventing on my head, but obviously I have to show you what I'm seeing in the black void of my mind, because if not, you will only think that I'm crazy, and well, that's somehow true, but I have to show you something of what I'm imagining. So if you like this, give a like and subscribe. Allow me to know in the comments what's your opinion, what do you think about this, if you like this faction, if not, if you like this kind of intro game, which actually not that. By the way, I have made an intro for every one of the soldiers in this video, but because you are watching right now a video which is like, let's say, 40 something minutes, I cannot add those because those are from 1 minute to half a minute of intro, and you will feel that the video is longer, so I cannot add that, and that's all. What I have done here while I was speaking was the backpacks. I have used casting, well, a thermoplastic to cast that, and mix those revolver parts with those other plastic, well, resin parts. And one thing will be the gas or oxygen canister, and the other thing will be a kind of tank for holding thermite. Yeah, the thing that burns thermite. I will explain that later. And now I'm making holes in the feet in the bases in order to add magnets in all of my models. Well, not all, but a variety of them, including the Hobbit. I add magnets because this allows you more flexibility if you want one day to put the models on a diorama in different bases, in the top of a vehicle, for example, terrain, whatever you think. It's a simple technique, it takes time, yes of course, but you have that flexibility. And I like that flexibility, even if they will not be all the time on a diorama, but if I make a photo, if I make a video, I can do just that. And as you can see, they do not have problems of magnetic erection, they are quite tight and erected. The German, the Russian, the Spanish, the American, and obviously
Jeremy Clarkson.
now it's time to make the hoses that will connect the gas mask with the oxygen gas tank. The other tank will be a thermite tank, in which the thermite pellets will be, because these guys are infected with the Rotterdammerum virus. For that same reason, they need to breathe in a closed system, unless they are in an infected place, and the thermite tank holds thermite in order for burning the soldier if the soldier falls. And that's all, grimdark without grimdunk. I have used the same for 28mm figures like that one. But right now I will add that missile to that missile backpack because of...
What's that? A missile backpack? Well, I guess you'll be right if a fucking bird attack. Presenting the most overrated character anyone ever saw with 5 lines in the trilogy. And one of them was...
I only need 5 lines, cause I look fucking great. You look like someone spilled lasagna on your face, but you're worth a lot to me if I bring you
So
back.
yep, definitely the missile will be there, and I will add those straps there in order to hold the missile there. Now, speaking about the missile, it's time to change some things of the bazooka, because I guess the missiles or grenades will fly like this. And, well, I do not like that. Well, yes, I like it. It's a rocket launcher, we all like those things, but I want a guided rocket launcher, so I added a laser guidance system. Because it should work like this. Now that we have our guided rocket launcher, it's time to create the last gun, or the last cannon. So, first of all, we will need to disassemble this optical guided system to direct cuts, which is a laser pointer, and then I will use this antennae, which are usually in radio control cars, in order to make the metallic part of the laser gun. And later I will use this carriage system, which came from a Kitbash thing of this kit, which is from Wargames Atlantic. I have used the actual carriage, the wheels, I have duplicated the wheels using casting, But the shield, the ballistic shield which comes with the kit, consists in a hole. Usually, as far as I know, holes are not good for ballistic protections, and let's speak about the reference of this gun, which was a Pak 36, this Chinese cannon, or the Soviet cannon. All of these cannons are the same cannon, but made in different places, and the German has a death potato in front, which looks like the Fat Man, which was inspired by the Davy Crockett recoilless rifle. Recoilless rifles are guns which are usually mounted in weird places, such as Vespas or donkeys. So paraphrasing the American saying of doesn't matter the battle for the dog, it matters the battle in the dog, it matters, in this case, the size of the recoilless rifle in the donkey or in the dragon. Let's make the ballistic shield for the gun. I am basically right now gluing plastic sheets which came from debit cards, and now it looks convincing for me, but now we have to make a hole in the gun and put the wires and everything inside. After that, glue everything, and well, now we could glue it, but I will not do just that right now, because we need to create the battery system. If you are making just a model, you do not need to make that, but mine has batteries, so I have to make this. And I didn't really like it how this looked, because it looked like a pirate chest. I do not like for my nuclear battery to look like just that. So I have used a barrel, I have added a kind of feet using again plastic art, and later I will add more things, for example, and later I will cover the ends of the barrel using a half cap and then adding the positive and negative poles for the batteries right there. I will do that off camera, and I will show you the parts of actually detailing, because that is quite straightforward thing to do. For example, I have heated that screwdriver in order to create a hole and then glue inside a PDA. As you can see, I have added wire in order to hide some ugly gaps, and those reinforcements were made out of cardboard and inside of the nuclear portable fusion reactor, I guess, you can see all of the electrical systems. You could also weld an interrupter, because this was a really small model. If I glue just that, it will do not look, to me at least, proper or good. Nevertheless, for Warhammer stuff, which are generally more bigger, you could probably hide a clicker inside. And this is the intensity of the laser. It is not actually pink, it is red, but my camera picks this as pink, like this pink. But this is not pink. I mean, yes, you are seeing pink, but what I see in reality is red, this red. If we shut off the light, we could see again red or pink or red again, but nevertheless you can use this for certain character of Star Wars.
Open fire. Help us.
Now it's time to fill some holes, make more details. I will use green stuff in order to fill some ugly gaps. And now that we have the electrical system, I will glue the gun inside of the carriage. And I will use this Spanish Blue Division guy with mines as gunner for the gun. Speaking about figures, these ones are made out of plastic. Plastic usually works better with plastic glue because it melts the plastic. Nevertheless, you can use cyanoacrylate, but you cannot use plastic glue or plastic cement for resin models. These arms are different than the original ones. They came from a T-34 tankist, if I'm not wrong, and I will use them because they fit better for a guy which is in position expecting something or holding a gun. And as you can see here, I have done magic and the guy is completely done. We have the gas mask. I have made with the excess of green stuff the cover of that trench shovel or entrenching tool, and now I'm gluing stuff to the gun. For example, that pistol grip, which came from a pistol for Warhammer. I will glue that screen there, which came from an Auspex, I guess from Games Workshop. It could work as a kind of onboard Pip-Boy for controlling things of the gun, probably even to aim while covered with the ballistic shield. And I will add some things like those reinforcements and things which hug the cables, which are made out of paper and cardboard. You then need to reinforce that with super glue, and they will be as strong as plastic, so don't be afraid of using cardboard or paper if you then reinforce that using super glue. And now it's time to add those things. Those metallic things came from the metallic things. Yes, I use things a lot of times, but these metallic sheets came from the X's you can cut from the Edward photo-etched pads, I guess they are called, and it will be a kind of holder for the Mauser car rifle of this guy. And now it's time to paint. Basically, I guess I could begin to speak about the lore right now, but also I do not want, because I have to explain some things of these guys, about techniques, because this is the first video you will see in this channel in which I am actually doing figures, not tanks, not vehicles, nothing like that. So, first of all, for these uniforms, the red and black ones, I choose them because I like the idea of the firefighters, but also because these are quite common colors, which I have lying around years ago, but probably also you. So the techniques that you will learn here will probably allow you to paint something really similar with not so much amount of resources. You do not need, for example, contrast paints, an extreme ability at the time of painting, good grip on the brush, etc. Basically, what you need is red, in this case Mephiston red, and then black. Once you cover everything, you can see here that the arms are quite horrible, the lines. I will use black in order to cover again the parts in which the paint flowed too much and cover what it didn't cover. After this, I call it almost done, and we can jump to the next step. By the way, I painted different accented red parts for each different soldier. The ones who carry the German Stahlhelm and set uniforms had one tone, one type of paint. The American has a triangle because he has a bazooka and bazookas and rockets. Triangles, I don't know. And the Russian has a red square on the helmet. I should have thought that before better. And now what I'm doing is dry brush with gray. Why I'm doing this? Well, this will be covered in the future, but it will give more shades to different shapes in the wrinkles of the clothing. And also right now I'm painting with white these tarps, because for these parts I will use contrast paints and we need a white base for that. In this moment, while the white is drying, I will use this red rust paint in order to paint every single strap of leather. Every single one. The one of the French, the one of the Soviet, the one of the American, and now with grey blue I will paint the gas masks and the oxygen canisters. After that, it is time just to paint an immense amount of wash, using in this case an acrylic, and actually not wash, a shade, because Nuln Oil it's a shade, it's not a wash, or at least that's what the bottle says. And I will cover everything necessary, including some parts of the uniform which had too much grey. Also, the gas mask, the Soviet gas mask, was painted using, I guess it was Games Workshop teeth or bone color. I'm not sure right now, sorry, I didn't recall that part. And then using that shade. For the American gas mask, I have used exactly the same white, off-white, and then cover with contrast green, military green if I'm not wrong, all the gas mask, because the M17 sometimes came in grey, other times in green. And later, as you can see right now, I'm painting with contrast paints the tarps. This is a quite easy technique. Once you have painted everything with white and with a bit of darker color on the recesses, you can use the contrast paint, in this case blue, because
Our uniform, it is bleu. I look good melee, yeah. Today I use my trench fleur. I got your blood on my shirt.
and later it is just time to paint with khaki, and I guess it was dust color or dunkelgelb, yeah. Some part from the tarps of other materials, such could be the backpacks for gas masks or other small bags. Then the easiest trick in the manual is to use Agrax Earth shade, I guess it is, which is a kind of shade with brown color for covering the khaki tones, black for the dunkelgelbs, or vice versa, depending on what you want, and later to use dry brush for that backpacks and for the entire uniform. Why I'm using dust? Well, because this is a kind of uniform for the wasteland. It will get dust. Instead of breaking your mind thinking I have to use a light gray, I have to use a light black, that exists. And now I'm painting wood in the weapon. For example, for the Setmi, I'm using a kind of rust color in order to achieve that kind of orange which some weapons have, and another darker color for the wood parts, such as the shovels, such as other parts which will have other types of browns. For the helmet of the American, I'm using again dry brush with dust in order to mark more the netting of the helmet. And now I will show you how I paint woodgrain. For the Russian guy, I will use the exact same rust color which I have used in the Setmi to paint the stock, and later with oil paints, I guess this was black wash. You need to put an immense amount of this black wash and then use a thinner. Just move it, in this case vertically, if your stock is horizontally placed, horizontally of course, and then you will have woodgrain. Obviously you will need to use an airbrush and to varnish that later, because you could remove that accidentally, so you need to protect that later. Now it's time to make some wear and tear on the bazooka and also on the last cannon. How I make this? Well, with the technique I use always, I use a filter, the liquid of the filter, in order to remove the paint. I have delved more into this technique in the Tachikoma videos, in the spherical tanks, and basically that's all. And right now it's time to apply the details. You should not apply the decals before removing the paint, because you are literally removing the paint. If you apply the decals and you want to remove the paint, you will ruin the decals. It's better to remove the paint first and then to add the decals, and later you basically need to varnish the model, and that's all. Right now it's time to sponging. It's a really easy and put together technique, and you need to sponge with black some part of the red metal, such as the helmet, such as the thermite tank of the back, and then to use some metallic paint in order to denote more those scratches and make them more realistic. Also do the same with some dark gray or black metallic parts, such as could be the helmets themselves, such as could be the gas canisters of the German uniforms, or the oxygen gas tank. Then I will use some oils in order to apply them to the bazooka and achieve a more realistic effect. And I'm getting bored to explain what are you currently seeing on the screen, so I will probably speak about the lore or do something different, because this is boring. Right now you are seeing what I am doing. It has no more technique, it's quite straightforward. So let's speak about the lore or invented stuff that happens in my mind. Well, the Black Division, as I call these guys, was born in October 23, 2077, the day the bombs fell, but their origins trace back to earlier shadows, to the collapse of the European Commonwealth. When the Middle East was engulfed in nuclear fire, Europe was cut off from its vital resources. The Commonwealth fractured, nations turned on each other, some remained neutral, most did not. In the aftermath, deaths had to be paid, some with money, others with flesh. Germany was forced to halt his advancements in AI and military technology. France had to reduce its industrial output. The Soviet Union, having stayed out of the conflict, paid nothing. But countries like Spain, Italy and Portugal, they had only two things to offer: food and people. Over 400,000 soldiers were sent north to reinforce Germany's borders, an echo of the old Blue Division. These new troops were not volunteers. They would fight if needed, but they did not hide their resentment. Then came the Sino-American War, October 2077. As global annihilation loomed, Spain sent a final message to its Black Division: Venganza, followed by a long string of numbers. A list of coordinates, not codes, but bunkers, shelters built for the elite. The order purged them, and so they did, alongside remnants of the East and West Germany, Soviet troops, American garrisons, even French. They turned the bunkers meant for the rich into sanctuaries for civilians and tombs for their masters. But in the Europa bunker, they found something worse. It was one of the largest underground complexes ever built, connected to the hidden tunnels leading to the Facility Zero, or as survivors would call it later, Weisterschloss, the Ghost Castle. There, the Rotterdameron virus escaped containment. It consumed the Europa bunker and gave rise to the first Gestalt Warmine, a networked intelligence born of the dead. But those already twisted by radiation, ghouls were immune to its control. The survivors, scarred yet free, stood their ground. Over time, others joined them, remnants across the old world. So yep, they are basically the Night's Watch from Game of Thrones, mixed with the market men from the Divide, including how the Brotherhood of Steel originally formed in Fallout. And that is all. Basically, what I wanted in this video is to show how you can kitbash your own figures, cool ones, and also I really wanted to try something new, like for example this laser gun. This thing which you are seeing right now, it's somehow how it looks with real illumination, the type of light that you could have at your hobby store or at daylight. But again, that's not pink. What I see in reality is not that pink, it is more or less this intensity of red. But for the camera to catch this type of color, I have to shut off the light or edit the images like here. This is what I see in reality with real light, with the Canon, with good illumination and real red. So keep that in mind if you want to make your own. By the way, these soldiers are the first ones which I ever painted, and this is how I paint right now. I have evolved a bit thanks to these easy techniques, so I consider that with easy techniques like these ones, maybe you will try to paint more figures, which is a quite cool thing to do. It's a thing that it will allow you to paint better and better each time you go to make new projects. By the way, that was the third figure I ever painted, and this is how these models look on this diorama, which has magnets, which is the first ever video which I have made in this channel. And that is all, basically. I hope you have enjoyed this video and you have learned some techniques, and overall you like it, and say me something in the comments, because I am a nerd and I basically answer everything about techniques, about Fallout, or about basically anything, because I am just that weird of a person. The type of person who adds stocks to laser submachine guns, which should probably do not have any kind of recoil. I am that type of overthinker. Yeah. And for the next video, I do not know what I will do. For example, I was thinking of making a Hobbit battleship, because, yeah, I guess continuity. You make post-apocalyptic dark guys of a green dark setting, which is not Warhammer. Obviously, you need to make battleships for hobbits, because, yeah, continuation. That is all. Until the next one, have a nice day.